Guys, welcome back to our section 3.3, which we're dealing with linear functions or linear equations. And we're going to use tables today to see if values are linear. So first, what I want you all to do is from this point on, when we're talking about linear, we think about patterns. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to say, okay, what do the x values do in this chart? Okay, so and also the y values. That is that will show us the work to tell me if it's linear or not, and from there we can get slope, and we can start getting some equations. Okay, now the first equation, this is not going to be too hard to think of, but some are a little difficult. So I'm also going to show us how to do this on our calculator. Now, Part A asks if it's linear, show your work. So here's what I expect, especially, just showing work and stuff, is I want you to look at X. What is X doing? It's going up by 1. What's my Y value doing? It's going up by 10. So since they're all going up by 1, my X value and all my Y values by 10, okay, now that's showing my work. So I'm going to say it's yes. Now the slope, what is the slope? Well, most of my classes will say, well, it's 1 or it's 10. Well, it's one of them, yes. But remember, our rise over run, I want you all to think about that for a second. Our rise over run is our y over x values. So what's my y value? It's going up by 10. So it's positive. What's my x? Going up by 1, and so it's positive 1. What's 10 over 1? It's 10. So 10 is my answer. Finally, in this one, I'm going to ask us what the equation is. I just want you all to think about this for a second. Okay, it's in y equals, needs to be in y equals mx plus b format. Okay, what is my slope? It's 10. What is my y-intercept? That means when is x 0? Well, when x is 0, what is y? It's 0. So my equation is 10x plus 0, or it's just 10x. Doesn't matter which one. I know some people just want you to put 10x. For me, if you put 10x plus 0, I am perfectly fine with. So the key to these are to see patterns of x and y, understanding the slope. So at any point during this lesson, please pause it, work it out, and see what you can come up with. Let's take a look at number 2. Okay, so number 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask us, okay, first of all, is it linear? Show your work. And what is the slope? Okay, now, what does x do? 2, 4, 6, 8. They all go up by 2. What do my y values do? 8, 16, 24, 32. Goes up by 8s. Okay, so they all have the same pattern. It's yes. My work I've shown by the arrows. The slope is going to be my y value over my x value. My y is 8. My x is 2. So my slope in this is m equals 4. My next 2, I want you to take some time and do exactly what I've done. If you want to pause it right now, you can. I'm going to go ahead and to explain it right now. So my x values, what do they do? Well, my x values go up by 3. But take a look what my y's do. 4, 8. Look at them. They're going up by 4, 8, 16. They're also multiplying by 2. Well, that is not linear because it has to either go up or down the same amount. So I'm going to say no. Okay. Now, if you do find one that's no, the slope, it's not going to have one. So it's, there's no slope to this. Now, what about the next one? 5 for the x value, it's 5, 10, 15, 20. It's going up by 5. Look at my y value. Okay. Since it's negative, it's easy for me to say, okay, it's going down. But think about this for negative 30, negative 20, negative 10, and 0. It's actually going up by 10. So yes, it is. And my slope in this case is going to be the 10 over 5, my y over my x, which is 2. Now let me just show you one thing. Let's just say these values, I'm going to kind of throw this in here. Just say if the values were 10, negative 10, negative 20, and negative 30, then in this case, it would be going down 10, which in this case, instead of the slope would have been, since it's going negative down, it means negative 10 over 5. So kind of keep that in mind as well. Okay, finally, I'm going to show you some stuff on the calculator. Okay, now let's just say you have a t value and a v values. So think about this as your x and y values. Okay, so right off the bat, we're going to think about this as our x value. This is our y value. Okay. Now, what is my x or my t value doing? They're going up by 1. What about my y value or my v value? They're going up by 10. So I can go ahead and answer the first part of this pretty quickly, saying, okay, yes. What's the slope? The slope is 10 over 1, or 10. What is the function? What is a linear function? So this is where I want you to, this is how to understand your calculator. And I'm going to go over this with you. I'm going to put directions on this as well. Okay? So what I want you to do is your x values are always, write this out, L1, and your y values are L2. Okay? So I'm going to kind of keep these, try to keep this just like right here. So here's what you want to do. Your first thing is you need to find your stat button, which is at the top middle. It's right under the DEL, the delete button. It's STAT. You want to go to your stat button. Okay, once you hit stat, you'll see a thing called edit. Okay, so go to stat. Edit is your first option. You hit enter. Then you've got your L1 and L2s. Okay, now make sure you never hit the DEL button because it will mess up your calculator. Then you're going to have to probably either email me or look on YouTube about how to fix this error. Okay, now when you hit edit, you'll come up, you'll see your, I'll just go ahead and put this right here because we've already labeled, you'll see a bunch of an L1 and L2 places to put. So for my L1, all I'm going to do is and if you've got numbers on here, just type over them. Do 0, enter, 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter, 4, enter. Hit your over arrow to the right, go all the way up, and then go 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay, so once you enter those in, you need to go and hit the stat button again, and this time do calc. Okay, so if you hit your stat and calc, go to option number 4. Option number 4 linear regression. Okay, so you hit linear regression. Okay, you may have to enter a bunch of times that it says calculate, and it's going to put it in y equals format. Now this time what it is, it's going to give you an A or and a B value. Okay, now our calculators, let me just show you real quick. This is what our linear is, but what our calculator uses is AX plus B because they use A in other equations as well, and we'll get to those later on. So you should have had A equals 10, B equals 0, which AX, so it's AX 10X plus 0. You don't need it, but I'm going to just put it in there. And that's your equation. So if you go all the way back up at the top, take a look at our first one. That's the exact same thing we did by hand, except now we can do it on the calculator. Remember, you can pause this, go back as many times as you want. So the linear function is this right here. Okay. Next. What about this right here? I've got M and N. What's the equation? So on this one, I'm just asking us what the equation is. I mean, you could go ahead if you want to and say, okay, it's going up by, M is going up by 5. Y is, or N, or the Y value is going up by 10. Okay, we could go ahead if you want to and say, okay, the slope is 10 over 5, which is 2. Now remember, this is my L1 and this is my L2 values. Okay, so if you look at my first part stat and edit, what you want to do is you want to put in my L1 and L2s. Now, for some reason, if you have less values, if you've used your calculator several times and you have more values than you need it, just go to that number and put in. So if you go to the stat and edit, and you don't need a number, just go to the number and highlight and hit DEL, delete that one, and delete the Y value as well, or the L2 value. Okay, so we put those in, and then what I want to do is I want to go stat and calc. Option 4, which is linear regression. You should come up with an A and B value, which is, what I got was A is 2, B is negative 40. What does that mean by an equation? A is my slope, so I'm going to say Y equals 2. Now be careful because instead of X, we're using M for X. I've circled it over here on the table. 2M. And my B is minus 40. Now take a look at this. If I go ahead and plug my values in for 5, say 5 my first one, 5 times 2 is 10. 10 minus 40 is that negative 30. Put 10 in there. 2 times 10 is 20. 20 minus 40 is that negative 20. 15 the same way. 15 times 2 is 30. 30 minus 40 is that negative 10. And finally, you put 20 in there, take a look what happens. 20 times 2 is 40, and 40 minus 40 gives you that 0 for the values. Those have to work from your equation. Okay? Now we're dealing with time. Okay, take a look. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you what you need to do. With time, I'm going to say, okay, that's my initial value, and it's going up 1, 2, and 3, just like this. The reason why I made that 0 is because if you don't, our calculator is going to think that is at 12 and 1. It's going to go backwards. But take a look what our time is on a clock. This is a clock. That's why I'm zeroing that out. So that's actually going up by 1. And then if you do the M, that's going up by 73 on every one. It has to go up by every one by 73. Okay, so I'm gonna put L1 in. There's my L2. Okay, just for the show on your slope you should get, or your A value, you should say 73 over 1, which is 73. Let's see if our calculator predicts that right. Okay, so if you go ahead and do your stat edit, put in your L1 and L2, and then go to your stat, calculate number 4. So please at any point hit pause. So what I come up with on this one is A is 73 and B is 200. So my equation is going to be, now on this one, okay, my M depends on my T. So your Y always depends on your X. So I'm going to say M of T equals 73T plus 200. Now take a look at your chart right here. Okay, 73 is what we predicted for our slope, but take a look at the 200. That's our initial value, which is 200. What is my slope? Well, that's what our calculator, and plus we did that by hand, 73. Now, by using that equation, 73t plus 200, here in part C and D, here's 2 things we can ask you. Okay, part C means what value, or the value of t is 5, what is your answer? So in part C, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put in M of 5 equals 73 times 5 plus 200. This should be 365 plus 200 gives you 565. Now part D, we do not put in 930 for T. What this means, that's what our answer is. So I want to put 930 equals 73T plus 200. And then all I'm going to do now is solve for T by subtracting 200 on both sides. 730 equals 73T. Divide by 73. Divide by 73. 73 goes in evenly to 730 10 times. So T equals 10. Okay. Now finally, remember time. Time is special. So do not use 2000, 2005, 2010, 2015. These are years. You also want to zero them out as well. So 0. Now watch this. It's not 0, 1, 2, 3 anymore. 0. It's the difference. 0, 5, 10, 15. Okay. So these are my L1 and L2 values. Okay. So my L1 are my X values. What are they doing? They're going up by 5. Now, take a look at your L2 values. What are they doing? They're actually decreasing by 50. So just do a short little run right here. My slope is going to be, since they're going down by 50, it's going to be negative 50 over positive 5. In this case, my slope, so by working this out, my slope is going to be a negative 10. But what is the formula? So you still have to go to stat and edit. My L1 values, put in 0, 5, 10, and 15 now. Do not put in the years. And then my L2 values, you just put down the 349, 299, 249, and 199. And you should get for A -10, which we predicted. And B is 349, which if you look at 0, that's our initial time. That's what we start with, 349. So our formula is going to look like time and price. So price depends on T. So remember, your L2 always depends on your L1. So P of T equals -10T. And then since 349 is positive, 349. Okay, now the slope we predicted, that is -10. What about P of 25? Okay, that means what I'm going to do is I'm going to say P of 25 equals, now this is not, you do not have to solve for that 25. That just means that 25 you put in for T. That gives me -250 plus 349. So this should give us a total of $99. And finally, what about when it's -1? Well, now you do not put the -1 in. What that means is that -1 is what the cost is, or the price. So what I'm going to say is -1 equals -10T plus 349. Now here's where a common mistake is. Look at this. We always do opposite of this in this case. So 349, that means I'm going to subtract it. If you have both negative signs, just add them up. It'd be 350, and it's negative because both of them are negative, so you're in the whole 350. -10T divided by -10. So in this case, T is 35. So for my class, I want you all to work on the WebAssign. In this case, it's homework number 7. Thank you for listening.